Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the Sunday garden question and answer video that I do most Sundays of every month, except for the first Sunday of every month, which is Subscriber Sunday, and subscribers send in photos of things in their yard that they're proud of for that video. And I can see Holly creeping into the video already and thinking about eating grass. So here we go, we're off to a good start. If you're interested in sending in photos for the Subscriber Sunday video, the email address is right here, and just make sure you title the email subscriber photos or something like that. Send me big photos so that, because YouTube likes to put your photos on big screen televisions at this point. Okay, keep moving. Okay, all right. So obviously we had the giveaway last week, introduced for the plantsbymail.com gift cards. I've got the winners. I've got the two of the winners. I won't draw the YouTube winner at the end of the video. But I've got the winner for one of the $50 gift cards on Instagram is MX4Jan. That's the Instagram winner. And on the Facebook winner is Tammy Travis. If you contact me via the same email address, horttube@gmail.com, I will get the codes out to you for the $50 gift cards. The YouTube winner, I'll show at the end, and I'll show you how I pick these. There's a random comment picker that I use, but you'll get to see me do it for the YouTube one at the end. Because there were so many comments on last week's question and answer video, a lot of you took the opportunity to ask questions. Thank you for that. I think there's over 100 questions though, out of like, I don't know how many comments are on it. There's over 400 comments, I think, and 100 of them or something are questions. I wrote down 75 of the questions before I ran out of energy writing questions down. And what I'm going to do is divide this into a few videos. So so you're going to see a question and answer video today, and then again tomorrow, and it'll just be a question and answer bonus round or something like that. I'll call it tomorrow. But there were a ton of good questions, so I figured why not take the opportunity and answer as many of them as I can. So let's get started on the questions, and like I say, at the end I'll show you how I draw the winner for the YouTube winner. I'm just turning around and making sure she's not eating grass behind me, sorry. Okay, somebody asked me about spider mites on their ligustrum and how to combat that, and if they could prune their ligustrum hard, would that help? I think those are actually privet mites, which are a little different. Privet mites, I've never seen them, but I do know about them. They're similar to spider mites, but they don't have the webbing on them, and they're kind of a reddish color on the back of the leaf. Cause similar damage. The difference doesn't really matter. But they're called, I think they're privet mites is what they are. And yeah, you could cut them back hard. Make sure you dispose of all of that material, and then you can use neem. You can try neem oil to combat them as well. Usually, when things are under attack from mite-like insects, insects that suck. Get on the back of the leaf and and suck at them. They're normally some sort of stress related with that too. I don't know if they're not getting enough water or fertilizer or something. Maybe they need to be mulched. Maybe cutting them back, fertilizing them, and then spraying them with neem oil. Maybe all of those things would work. If they're not in a mulch space, you may want to mulch around them. Whatever. It's probably some stress related to their getting attacked as well. Let's see. So that one, I got to mark these carefully because I got a lot of questions. Page after page after page of questions. Okay, somebody asked me about moving a Rose of Sharon that's been in the ground for less than a year. I think you could move a Rose of Sharon almost anytime you wanted to move it that wasn't well anchored in the ground. The sooner you move something, I'll get this question a lot of times. When is the best time to move something that I did just recently put in the ground, meaning less than a year? And that answer is that day. Pretty much would be, unless you're in zone 5 and it's the middle of the winter, obviously that wouldn't be a good time to do it because you can't even dig a hole. But if you can reasonably dig it out of the ground and move it, the sooner you do it, the better, because they become more anchored and it becomes more damaging as time passes. So if I told you fall is the best time to move a Rose of Sharon, which it probably is, it would have 6 more months to root into the ground, at which point you'd actually do more damage than you would today, if that makes any sense. Okay, Rose of Sharon. Somebody asked me about the spacing for bare root green giants. They had, I guess, got about 20-inch tall green giant bare root trees and want to know how the spacing is. Spacing is going to be the same for whether they're bare root or whether you buy ones that are already 10 feet tall. They need to be 6 to 8 feet apart. And so you can decide that. If I had some extra ones, I might consider putting them about 8 feet apart. Well, let's say 4 feet apart, and then ultimately they'd end up about 8 feet apart if you took every other one out later. If I had a bunch of them and I had gotten them reasonably priced, that may be something I'd do, and it's something I have done before. Planted plants a little closer together, knowing that I would come back and eliminate them later. That way I could get a screen when they're maybe 6 or 8 foot tall, and by the time they're 12 or 14 foot tall, you take every other one out, if that's a possibility for you. But they need to be 6 to 8 feet if you want to plant them permanently and never mess with them again. Okay, that's the green giant question. Somebody asked me about their seedlings stretching, and that's definitely, not enough light. And I've got, if you're doing seedlings in the house and you're not giving them any LED light, fluorescent lights, some sort of additional light, it's really hard in the house unless you have some sort of sunroom where the angle of the sun is really getting into the room for them not to stretch. And so I have 2 different lights in here, and I like my fluorescents better than I like the LEDs that I bought. So if you go back and watch that video that I did setting up my lighting system, I would definitely recommend those 4 bulb fluorescents that I have over those LEDs for sure. But you really do need additional light. If you can put them out, it was 80 degrees the last 2 days in my area, and I actually took some of my seedlings outside. I fertilized my seedlings with fish emulsion, and so doesn't smell very good in the house, and so I bring them out and give them some additional light on those days as well, and then just put them back in at other times. But yeah, if your seedlings are stretching, that's just telling you there's not enough light. Nothing else to get from that. Let me see. Somebody asked me about their North Pole arborvitae turned brown in October. I'm assuming if you planted one of those North Pole arborvitaes, you must be way north someplace. And said it turned brown in October when it first got cold. I don't think the cold in October would have been cold enough to hurt one of those North Pole arborvitaes. So if cold was going to be the issue, I think that would have happened in December or January when it was really, really cold. I don't think October, I think you had some other issue going on. It was staying too wet or too dry or something else, or it was poorly planted, or it wasn't a good plant when you got it, whatever. Something else other than that. And now it's thinned out quite a bit, and they want to know what I would do with it. And I hate to tell people to make these kind of decisions, but conifers recover super slow. And so if you had a 7 foot tall conifer that's 3/4 naked, it would just take forever. Even if the whole thing switched around and it just went utterly fantastic, it's going to be a couple years with that thing looking like that probably. They just don't recover very quickly. So if it was me, I would probably eliminate it. And the other suggestion I would have is, if you're going to be in the house for a long time, when you're picking out some of these conifers like this, I don't necessarily buy them very large. I would prefer to put in a 3-gallon North Pole arborvitae or Emerald arborvitae or DeGroots arborvitae or whatever. I'd prefer to put one in that's 24 inches, 30 inches tall and just let it grow in that place. When I've had problems in the past on landscape jobs where I've had to replace conifers, they were larger ones that I had put in. They seemed to take the transplanting worse or poorly. Somebody asked me if they could put their Hydrangea in a container and leave it there long term. That's yes, for sure. When you're asking me though about leaving perennials and shrubs and trees in containers long term, I think people are really asking me literally whether they can leave it in there 3 or 4 years, and the answer to that's really no. I did that container planting video a couple days ago with that azalea. Probably a year from now, even if I wanted to leave it in the same container, I'll pull it out of that container, knock some of the soil off, and put some fresh soil in there, mix some fresh soil in there. So keep that in mind when you're container planting something, that you do need to refresh the soil at some point. And so the answer to anyone asking me that question, is there something you can put in a pot and just leave it there forever? No, everything kind of uses up the oomph that it can get from the soil over time, even fertilizing it. Okay, let's see. Somebody asked me if I'm going to put a fountain in the garden, and I am, it's this spot. I don't know if you guys can see where Holly, yeah, I think you can still see her over here. But this space right here, and yes, I'm wearing all beige today. I get this thing about what I'm wearing all the time. So I went all beige on purpose, and they don't even match. But there's a fountain going here. I'm going to have perennials and wildflowers here this season because I think it'll probably be fall before I get around to building this fountain. But it's basically just going to be a seating wall that wraps around the curve of where this grass is, and it's going to have a drop down on it, so it'll make noise. It's basically just going to be a water noise making thing just to cover some of the city noise that's around me. Let's see. Somebody asked me about growing an Oakland holly in light shade, and that's fine. Most of these upright hollies will grow in light shade. You will have to do a bit of pruning on them. So if you were growing it to get berries, I don't think you're going to get a whole lot because you will have to do some additional shearing to keep it full. So that's your trade-off. But yes, it would work fine in part shade. And the golden Oakland holly that I have in this yard, you can see on the Wednesday update videos, if you watch my Wednesday videos on all the things that have gone in this yard, that golden Oakland's definitely going to be in part shade, and I plan on doing a little bit of shearing on it over time. I just know I'll have to. She's back behind me again. Okay, I've talked about trees don't like to be in lawns, and I can see that all over the suburbs, everywhere around the city of Raleigh. You know, people that plant trees directly in their lawns, the trees are not that great. And then somebody asked me, well, how big of a bed does it need to be? I think it needs to be out to the drip line, really. And so if you're planting a tree that's going to get large over time, that bed needs to get larger with it. So, you know, commit that in your mind that you're going to lose some lawn over time to have that tree look good. And so typically I would never plop a tree down in the middle of my lawn. I'd put it to one side or the other so I could just commit that entire side to be bed over time, rather than, you know, plop it in the middle and then have some circle that has to grow in order for the tree to be happy. But, you know, lawns and trees don't play nice together. They don't grow anywhere, many places in nature together. There are oaks, savannas, where oaks will grow out in turf areas, and but most of the world you either see grassy areas or wooded areas. You don't see them playing nice with one another very, very much. So hold on, let me see. Somebody wanted to know about, let's see, holly that somebody wanted to know about a holly that would get 10 to 12 feet and wanted to use it on a foundation. Most of the upright hollies are going to blow through that over time. And so if you want an upright, narrow holly, like Oakland holly would be a good choice for this, it's going to get taller than that over time, but you can control it. There's no reason why you couldn't keep one 10 to 12 feet, but it will get 15 or 20 if you just let it. All of the ones that are going to get 10 to 12 feet, like dwarf Burford or needlepoint, or those, they tend to get too wide for what you're probably doing. So I would get an Oakland holly. I wouldn't get Nellie Stevens. Nellie Stevens gets wide at the base. Oakland, oak leaf, or robin. That would be the three upright, narrow hollies I think would work well. And then you can just keep them 10 to 12 feet for a very, very long time. Let's see. We got that one. Somebody wanted to know about using a clump bamboo in Phoenix, Arizona, and then we're concerned that it would be aggressive. I would think that you can just turn the water off if it gets aggressive. I mean, I think you have the, I think Phoenix, Arizona has the key to killing bamboo, which is just don't water. And so, you know, I would only irrigate the space that you wanted to grow in, even if you got an aggressive type of bamboo. Literally, you can just turn the water off and control anything there pretty quickly. So I wouldn't put bamboo in this yard. I got this wooded space behind me, and it could, you know, really become invasive very quickly. But I think Phoenix probably has, like I say, you got a tool in your tool shed that most of us don't have. You can just turn the water off and kill anything on a 120-degree day. Somebody asked me about their Hydrangea paniculata was not leafing out in zone 8 yet. I think they have a quick fire hydrangea. Those haven't leafed out for me. I'm in 7B, so I'm close to you, and my white wedding hydrangeas, which are similar, have not leafed out yet, and so they're a little later. My big leaf hydrangeas, I've got one around the corner over here I've never shown. It's well leafed out, so that's just a difference in those two types of hydrangeas. But it'll be another, these aren't even showing any signs of leafing out. I think it'll be another week or two before they're leafed out. Let's see. Somebody had gotten some Agapanthus from plantsbymail.com. I put up that unboxing video a couple days ago. They're right back there, and it's too early to put them out at in their yard. They wanted to know about potting them up. Yeah, you could pot them up if you wanted to, or just leave them in that container. Agapanthus actually like to have their roots, they don't mind being root bound. They actually bloom a little better when they're root bound. When their roots aren't restricted, they tend to put on a lot of new foliage growth and not a lot of flowers. So you could pot them up if you needed to, if they were actually root bound, but I doubt you need to. Just wait till the last frost and stick them in the ground. Just leave them in the pots outside as much as you can and bring them in at night when it's cold. That's how I would handle that. Somebody asked me about planting asparagus and just tips for planting asparagus. I really think asparagus needs to be hilled up. And so, you know, people that grow asparagus do grow it on hills. So keep that in mind. You want to, you know, you definitely want some sort of raised bed to grow asparagus, and then you just spread the roots out. They go down, you know, 5 or 6 inches into the ground, and you spread the roots out, but they actually need to be planted in a mound toward the bottom. You know, the asparagus would end up near or just above the existing grade of soil, and then a mound of soil would go up on them like that. So I think I'll hold this video to this length and show you how I picked the YouTube winner and how I picked the Instagram and the Facebook winner as well for the plantsbymail.com giveaway. Thanks again to them for participating in the channel. And like I say, tomorrow I'm going to come back and continue to go through some of these questions. Thanks everybody for participating in these question and answer videos. You can ask questions down below this one, and I'll pick from those for next weekend. Thanks for watching. So here's how I picked the names for the winners for these giveaways. This is a random comment picker. I enter the URL of the video right here. I filter out duplicate users, get the YouTube comments. There were 379 unique comments, and then I hit the start button over here, and the winner will appear right here. And the winner for YouTube is Libby Harper. So send me an email to HortTube@gmail.com, and I will give you the code for your $50 gift card. Thanks everybody for watching.